Greetings and welcome to the Seattle Law of One podcast. Today's episode is about suffering. One of the most frequently asked questions of all the world's religions is, why does God allow so much pain and suffering in the world? The short answer, according to the Law of One, is that we literally asked for it. The longer answers, of course, are more nuanced, more compassionate, more balanced in love and wisdom. So why does Creator allow so much pain and suffering in the world? Do we really have to suffer this much? And if so, how can we learn to love the suffering? Let's find out. My name is Jonathan Tong. I'm facilitator for the Seattle Law of One study group. We can be found on the list of study groups at the LNL Research website shown on your screen. We do also have a Facebook group, and we meet twice a week on Zoom, Tuesdays from 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific time, Saturdays 8 to 10 a.m. Pacific time. You don't have to live in Seattle or anywhere near Seattle to join our Facebook group or our Zoom sessions. Anyone who's interested and available is welcome to join. Just contact us at seattlelawofone@gmail.com to get on our mailing list. We send out emails once a week with Zoom links and information on what we're talking about that week. We do also have a YouTube channel where we keep recordings of previous podcast episodes, as well as recordings of our monthly Q&A sessions with Jim McCarty. Go to our YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button if you'd like to get notifications when we upload new videos. And contact us at seattlelawofone@gmail.com if you'd like to sit in on one of our Q&A sessions with Jim. As mentioned, today's topic is suffering. Let's go ahead and meet our panelists. Panelists, let our viewers know who you are and where you're calling from, starting with Raquel.
Hi, everyone. I'm Raquel, calling from Wesley Chapel, Florida. Nice to see everyone. Happy to be here. And thank you, Jonathan, for having me again.
It's been too long. It's great to have you back on, Raquel. And
Thanks.
Katrina.
Hi, I'm Katrina. I'm calling from Portland, Oregon. And yes, excited to be back on here again. Suffering is my favorite thing.
It must be, because apparently you've done a lot of it. Always great to have you on. And Frank?
Hi, I'm Frank. I live in Vancouver in Canada. And my first time on one of Jonathan's podcasts.
And hopefully not the last. So great to have you on finally.
Thanks, John.
Wanted to remind our viewers, as always, none of us here are experts or authorities on the Law of One. We are just normal people like you, talking about suffering, talking about spiritual things that seem important to us. Anything could be wrong that any of us say. You're welcome to disagree with anything that any of us say. If you're already familiar with the Law of One and the entity known as Quo, you might want to go ahead, skip ahead to the chapter on why do we have to suffer. Otherwise, for those who are new to the Law of One, you can think of it as a set of spiritual teachings based on the understanding that all is one and that one thing is love. All of the reading passages we're looking at today came to us through a process known as channeling. You can think of channeling as a form of telepathic communication between humans and entities such as angelic beings, extraterrestrial beings, inner planes beings, spirits of deceased, higher self, etc. A channel basically serves as a mouthpiece for other entities to speak through, and in this case, those entities would appear to be of extraterrestrial origin. There are two types of channeling that have been developed by our friends at LNL Research. Trance channeling is when the channel is in a trance state, meaning they're subconscious or unconscious as if asleep, meaning they are not at all aware of what words are coming out of their mouth as they're saying them. This is how contact was made with an entity known as Ra, starting in the early 1980s. Conscious channeling is when the channel is in a conscious but deep meditative state, meaning they're only somewhat aware of what words are coming out of their mouth as they're saying them. This is how contact was made with the entity known as Quo, starting in the mid-1980s up to present day. Who is Quo? You can think of Quo as a group entity made up of 3 social memory complexes: Ra at 6th density, Latui at 5th density, Hatan at 4th density. You can think of a social memory complex as a planetary consciousness. It would be as if the entire human population of Earth was merged into one group mind. You can think of densities and dimensions as different levels of consciousness or different levels of reality, since those two things are so closely intertwined. Imagine, if you will, that the elements of earth, fire, water, and air have some form of consciousness, as many indigenous peoples have been saying for centuries that they do. We refer to that as first density. You can think of second density as the level of consciousness of plants and animals. Clearly, a quantum leap in consciousness above and beyond that of what we would refer to as inanimate matter. You can think of third density as the level of consciousness of humans and cetaceans like whales and dolphins. Again, a significant quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of plants and other animals. You can think of fourth density as the level of consciousness of the social memory complex, as if the entire human population of Earth was merged into one single group mind. Clearly a significant quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of an individual person. You can think of fifth and sixth density as whatever would be comparable quantum leaps above and beyond that. There is much more that could be said on the subject, and if interested, check out our podcast episode on densities and dimensions. Otherwise, for now, suffice it to say the entity known as Quo appears to be a group entity made up of three planetary consciousnesses: Ra at sixth density, Latui at fifth density, Haton at fourth density. First contact with Quo was made by the L&L research channeling team in 1986, almost 2 years after the end of the Ra contact in 1984. They have been channeled every month since then up to present day by the L&L research channeling team. Transcripts of those sessions can be found in the L&L Conscious Channeling Library shown on your screen. Having said all that, let's take a look at a couple passages on why do we have to suffer. On May 20th, 2001, Quo said, "We would be fools to try to tell you that you have not suffered. What we are saying is that this suffering is a tremendously helpful force that is powerful to offer those refining energies that you came to experience, not because you wanted to suffer, but because you wanted to investigate and see if you could remake with even more purity that choice to serve the light with which you came into this incarnation." And on September 28th, 2023, Quo said, "Within that seeking and surrender, perhaps there will be a message given, a direction implied, an intuitive feeling that becomes a guiding star that takes you from where you are to where you wish to be, which is resolution, the resolution of difficulty of suffering, and to realize, as you look back upon it, that it has taught you much by having to experience the suffering. It may be likened to lifting the weights. Heavier weights may be lifted when you go through the pain of exercising. Thus, suffering is also of that nature. There's the pain of the suffering. It is the impulse, the inspiration that drives you to find the solution. And we would recommend that you continue looking within meditation or contemplation or any other facet of your experience that opens to you a door that leads to the light and the love of the one Creator in the form of resolution of suffering." Heavy stuff to start off with, for sure. And it's not going to get any lighter throughout the rest of this episode, I guarantee you. But I really love the analogy to weightlifting. I think of that often, like resistance training. The heavier the weights, the more you build up your spiritual muscles in this case. What do you think, Raquel? Any thoughts on anything here?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm glad that they actually acknowledge that we are suffering and that it's not like, oh no, it's a great time down there. What are you complaining about?
It's an illusion. It's all an illusion. Yeah.
You're not suffering, just think happy thoughts. But yeah, so I'm glad that they actually acknowledge that suffering is 100% one of the really the pathways, because obviously the other one is joy, as they mention in the next few passages. But when they said refining through, I feel like they're speaking to everyone, but in particular the wanderers here, in terms of refining your like coming back and like going through more suffering to really kind of refine and really tune up your crystallization. I believe, like, me personally, I know I'm working on really some very specific things this lifetime, and that I came back to kind of like really follow through on that because I could see the thread going through my lifetime now. And yes, I have to keep working on it because, like the weights, they get heavier and heavier, but I feel like it's also like a spiraling going up, because even though it's like repeating in terms of the suffering, I'm more aware now, and every time I get more conscious and my perception changes, it becomes like less suffering for me. So I'm
Are you able to
definitely
look back at those times of suffering and say that they were actually necessary for you to get the blessings out of it that you did?
necessary but not fun.
I
Necessary
know,
but
two
not
different
fun.
things,
Not
two
fun.
totally different
Like,
things, for
oh
sure.
my gosh. The fact the thing is, I did not have the awareness I have now, or else I wouldn't have to go through some of the suffering that I went through. However, I can see it now as something that was me understanding myself, really kind of becoming more conscious and aware. So that was, yeah, I
Yeah,
didn't like it.
looking forward to unpacking that a little further as we go along, for sure. What do you think, Katrina? Anything to add?
I love Raquel your statement about it not being fun, but necessary, because it's so true. And I think it's really important while we're talking about this, if someone is suffering, to like, we're not trying to make light of the pain because we've all been through it. We're just, I know personally for me, I've never gone through a hard time where I haven't come out with like a more beautiful lesson. And as much as I wished I could learn that lesson an easier way, obviously I'm too stubborn to do it. So what one of the things that stood out to me the most in this was even more purity, that the choice to serve the light with which you came into this incarnation. It's like that reminder that this, it was a choice to bring this light to this suffering, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's like that inner child part. You can't have light without dark, and you can't have dark without light, and that perfect balance is the beauty of the suffering.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that last line in the first passage where they said, not because you wanted to suffer, but you wanted to investigate and see if you could remake with even more purity that choice to serve the light with which you came into this incarnation. It's a
Mm-hmm.
really beautiful phrasing that I think kind of speaks to what you're talking about and why so many of us chose to come here as wanderers, as Raquel was saying. Oh, what do you
Mm-hmm.
think, Frank? Anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to agree with both of those young ladies. I think we're here on our specific sort of journeys, shall we say, and then the whole concept of suffering is to crystallize and to fine tune our lessons. Some of these words kind of rub me the wrong way sometimes. I don't really see them as lessons, but that language is an imperfect vehicle for some of this stuff. But yeah, I tend to agree, and I think as wanderers, the lessons are very specific to each of us, and so the suffering that we have can be very sort of narrow. Or, and for me, what I find is having, as as you go through your life, you have to have more awareness of your lack of boundaries, I think, and so therefore the suffering comes in, and you kind of go, oh, okay, I really need to think about this and do something to not stop it, but become aware of it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. As you were speaking, for the first time, I was reminded of the story of Job in the Bible. Because apparently in the Bible, God and the devil made a deal together. They placed a bet to see if Job, who was up to that point a faithful servant of God, could still be a faithful servant of God if they made his life a fucking hellish nightmare. And it reminds me of what they're saying in this passage. See if you could remake with even more purity that choice to serve the light, meaning, can you still choose to serve the light? Can you still love in spite of the huge amount of suffering you're going to have to undergo in this incarnation? It's interesting to think about, and I hadn't really thought about that before. Does anyone else have any other thoughts on this passage? I feel like I cut off a couple people as they were just getting ready to say something, so I apologize if I do that and just jump in there anyway.
No, you're good.
No, I think it's funny that you brought up Job, because that's immediately who I was thinking about. Because when you talk about suffering, I was raised in that evangelical Christian world. And it's almost this idea that, oh, look at how bad his life was, and he still praised God. And so you should be happy all the time. And I think it's important when you look at this that it's more, no, continuing within meditation or contemplation, any facet of your experiences. And my experience has been not to try to like make it seem like the suffering is beautiful and wonderful, even though the lesson that comes out of it can be, but that making friends with the suffering in a way that says, I'm here for the lesson. I wished I didn't have to learn it this way. I think it's just a different mindset, I think, than what was ever taught to me in that really evangelical world.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I'll say this line just stood out to me. There's pain of the suffering. It is the impulse and inspiration that drives you to find the solution. I feel like that's kind of important. It's not highlighted, but without the pain, you don't seek, to like be better or to change or to make different decisions. You kind of need that. It's like the guardrails on like when you're driving, you don't want to like it's kind or the lanes, like, something. It just keeps you like trying to go forward. And that's forward in your spiritual journey, I think, is kind of what they're hinting at here. It's like you're trying to find the solution. What is the solution? Well, if you don't have a problem, there's no solution to get to, right? So usually the suffering is kind of, especially when you're unaware of it, it's being brought to you just randomly in the form of catalyst. But eventually, once you start to understand that the suffering is, you can control that a little bit, which we'll talk about a little bit more and further, that's when you make different choices. But the suffering and the pain is very much necessary to help you to evolve, I think, spiritually.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
have to agree.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly it. And one of the beautiful things about having discussions like this is hearing other people's language around same concepts. So Raquel's view of lanes and, is kind of like what I define as boundaries. And so, it's kind of the same principles and how other people express it, which is, I think, one of the things that's really important about finding people that have not similar experiences, but a similar view of those experiences, so that we can all talk about it and distill it in ways that we may not have thought of ourselves, right?
For sure. Yeah, and as Katrina said, I'm guessing most of our viewers would agree that if you look back at your life and look back at what made you like grow the most and improve most as a person, they were probably negative experiences. That certainly has been the case for me. Shall we go ahead? Let's take a look at a couple other passages. First one is from June 23rd, 1990. Quo said, "Each entity's job is to gaze at those situations which confront one, to find love, praise, and the giving of thanks. In the face of great tragedies, this makes no sense to those who are fair-weather friends of the Creator and believe that the Creator is the giver out of the spiritual lollipop, the happiness pill, the serenity pill, the wisdom pill. No, my friends, the Creator, in his great and terrible wisdom and compassion, has given you free will to face all that you must face, including the most difficult and negatively perceived situations, in order that you may do that which is not easy. For how easy it is to forgive the small thing, the slight error of a friend." And on November 17th, 2018, Quo said, "Each of you has been given one or more blessings and a manner in which you may or may not recognize the situation that you find yourself in as the blessing. All blessings, indeed, carry the law of responsibility as a means by which to assure the self that the greatest attempt is made to give respect and honor and effort to each blessing, be it of seeming light or seeming darkness, in order that the blessing may accomplish in the life pattern that for which it was programmed. For many times, entities program the most difficult of situations in order that the greatest blessing may be achieved." So many great pearls of wisdom in here. And I love the fair weather friend of the Creator part, the giver out of the spiritual lollipop, the happiness pill. Just have to remind our viewers again, this stuff came to us through the process of channeling. And the person who was saying these words really didn't know what words were coming out. They weren't making it up themselves. They were just saying the words that seemed to be coming to them through what they believed to be telepathic communication with what they believed to be an extraterrestrial entity. And I think that's just really funny for an extraterrestrial entity to say. Gotta love it. What do you think, Katrina? Any thoughts on anything here?
When I was first reading this passage, and it said his great and terrible wisdom, I was like, oh, they can't say mean things about the Creator. And I was like, wait, no, we can.
Yeah, they can.
We can say that this is like it was just that initial like gut response of like, oh, we're allowed to say this is terrible. Oh yeah, that's right, we can. But no, I thought I laughed out loud about the fair weathered friend and like the wisdom pill, the happiness pill. It reminds me of all the commercials on TV about this isn't working, take this, and then take this for this, and this for this, and
And a long list of side effects.
Yeah,
Yeah.
more side effects than good, you know.
yes.
Yeah.
So but it was interesting because it's such a great perspective of like, yes, I have a choice in it, but this is also the creator's plan to make me come back to the creator, right? And so um that eventually needing, as much as I can make terms with the suffering and see the benefits and the lessons that have come from it, I would imagine after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime and millions of years, and when we're like in the sixth and seventh density, I'm realizing the seventh density is most likely because we need to forgive the creator for making us go through all of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, there's gonna
Well,
be
I had to
this.
reread that line a few times because he wasn't saying the creator and their great and terrible wisdom made you go through all this stuff. They're saying, and the
Right.
creator's great and terrible wisdom gave you the free will to choose to go through all of this
That's true.
torture.
That
Yeah.
If you really want to do it, you can do it.
for it. Yeah.
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 That's terrible parenting, I would say. Yeah.
Or amazing
Mhm.
parenting, right?
Or basic
Whatever
parenting.
way
Yeah.
you eventually learn. So, you know, I mean, my daughter had to touch 3 different types of hot stoves to learn that the stove was hot. So
Yeah.
sometimes we just have to learn the hard way. But no, I love the quote sense of humor in the writing. Like sometimes Ra can get very like ethereal, but like when Quo is talking, there's normally poetry and humor in it, and that's what I love.
Me too.
But anyway, I think also the greatest respect and honor for each blessing, like when you're thinking of suffering as that blessing and that yin yang piece of it, I think is the beauty poetry of it.
For sure. What do you think, Frank? Anything to add to that?
For me, one of the things that really strikes me with this passage is how easy it is to forgive the small things, right? And that on a daily level, you know, when you're driving a car and someone cuts you off, and you know, your immediate response is to get angry and then for me anyway, I can kind of, after a little while, not very long, hopefully, I'm getting better, you can kind of, okay, hey, fine, maybe he's having a hard day, and you can kind of forgive. But then there's the other side of that coin that is, you know, when somebody that is either close to you or something that's a little more real, I guess you can say, and how to find the forgiveness in that, right? How to get to the point where you can forgive without also then, and I'm sorry I keep going back to the boundary, but how to keep coming back to, you know, not allowing that to keep happening to yourself. So that's to me one of the difficulties in this incarnation for me, is to always try and find that balance.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, and folks who, like me, are in their early 60s remember what the world was like 40, 50, 60 years ago, and things are so much more intense now, and I think it is really difficult to forgive people for doing things that we could see as unforgivable. But yeah, to choose to come here to be able to see if you can still love those people who seem so unlovable, forgive people for doing things that seem so unforgivable, as opposed to the slight error of a friend. It's a
I
big
think
deal.
it's like almost like having a split personality kind of thing. We have to, you know, I always try and reference the observer as my real self, and then, you know, the ego part of me is the one that gets mad or you know, but then I try and move back from that perspective into the observer perspective and say, okay, well, I don't know X and Y about this other person's life, so how can I possibly judge it?
Yeah.
That's an interesting approach. I never really thought about it that way, but I could see how that could be super helpful. What do you think, Raquel? Anything to add?
Yeah. Well, I kind of agree with what Frank was saying. But first, each entity's job, yeah, it feels like a job. You know, spiritual work feels like a job sometimes. And like you know, people think they came here to be like a basketball star or a singer, but the real work is really developing yourself spiritually and advancing along your path, which requires a perspective shift. And this is where I agree with Frank on that. By the way, I would like a spiritual lollipop here and there. I mean, come on,
Oh, would it
give me
kill
the
you like once
creator
in a while? Yeah.
just once in a while, just hand me a just do a little handout. But yeah, it requires like an actual perspective shift in order to see that, okay, this person hurt me, caused me suffering, but now because of me understanding that I love the creator, I am the creator, other self is the creator, my perspective now has shifted into a way where the suffering that I felt, I can now use that as like wisdom, because now it sinks into me. I'm understanding the whole concept of this game. It's not that that person is trying to hurt me. Yes, on this level it is, but on the bigger zoomed out lens, it's the creator having an experience, I'm the creator having an experience, and this is how we teach each other. So the suffering then ends up being the jewel, right? The gem. And then you being able to gain that, transfer that into wisdom. That's how you move forward now along your path, and you grow and you grow. And so it requires a deep perspective shift. It requires you understanding yourself. It requires you seeing the other self as the creator, and it requires you loving the whole situation. So I guess surrender, forgiveness, understanding, that whole thing. It's just all there.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, as you were speaking about changing perspective, I was reminded that so many times Quo and Ra have encouraged us to use meditation as a spiritual practice, like all the time. In every session, it seems to come up multiple times. They're like Jehovah's Witnesses for meditation or some fucking thing. I don't know what it is, but I know many times they have talked about using meditation as a way to get that spiritual lollipop, to go into meditation. Specifically, they said to enter the inner sanctum of the open heart, where you can really feel cradled in God's arms, to get that comfort when you really desperately need a spiritual lollipop or some sort of comforting. I hadn't thought about that until you were talking about it, so much appreciated. Oh, yeah. Anybody else have any thoughts on anything in these two passages? Cool. Well, let's take a look. Oh, I did want to remind viewers, in that last passage, they were talking about how entities program the most difficult of situations in order that the greatest blessing may be achieved. We did a podcast episode a while ago on blessings and curses, where we looked at several different passages on how things that really seem to be curses or the worst things in our life often turn out to be blessings. Very underappreciated, underviewed episode, viewer. Check it out if you are so inclined. Otherwise, let's take a look at a passage on, do we really have to suffer? This is from June 19th, 1994. Quo said, and this has been edited for brevity, "It is not that sorrow, loss, and limitation are the only means of learning the lessons of love and polarizing towards the infinite creator's vibration, but rather that few indeed are the entities which are willing, in the absence of pain, to do the intensive work which is needed to attain an acceleration of the polarization process using joy as catalyst. Here is how to be joyful. Upon the arising, turn to the Infinite One, and instant by instant, turn again to the Infinite One, again and again, in all things giving thanks, in all conditions rejoicing. Turn again to the Infinite One, and rest in that peace which truly the world does not know. Joy is a living energy, as powerful and as effective as a teacher as sorrow. However, it demands of the seeker a self-imposed discipline of the personality, which looks beyond ease and comfort and energizes and exhorts the self again and again unceasingly to rejoice, give praise, and offer thanksgiving to the Infinite One. The path of joy is equally as effective as the path of sorrow. Yet if the seeker is truly upon the path of joy, there is the same degree of creative unrest in the process that there is while it's undergoing the catalyst of losses, limitations, and grief. This is the road not taken, the path of joy. If you would be good at this path, learn to be dissatisfied with happiness and count all things as loss, except turning again to praise and give thanks to the one infinite Creator. If the intensity of desire can be maintained while there is an absence of negative catalyst, then the negative catalyst is not necessary. You may see that indeed few there are who are able to walk this particular path of the infinite one. Interesting passage. There's lots of different things to look at and unpack here. There's a lot of language that seems one could interpret in different ways. What do you think, Frank? Any thoughts on anything here?
I think, yeah, it's really important to focus on that, the aspect of joy. And I think the two paths have to run simultaneously, and then our awareness has to move itself from the pain and suffering and focus on the smaller things, the joy. So, you know, when, if, again, just, I know you said we can not necessarily have to share, but there's, at this moment, we're finding ourselves in a position where we may have to be leaving our home of 20 years, which is hard. And one of the things that we do is we live in the West End near the sea wall, and almost every night we go for a walk around the sea wall, and it is the greatest blessing and it is the greatest joy. I hear every type of bird singing every single day, and every single day that awareness of it is with me. I hear it, I look for them, I talk to them if I can see them, seals in the water. And those moments of joy, I think, are what rebalance, in a sense, the you know, that deep hurt or that pain that we're going through. And I think that's sort of where it's important to realize that those two paths are really, really important. You can't have in this incarnation, to me personally, that, you know, you can't, if you focus too much on the pain and the suffering, then you tend to, like a magnet, attract that more. If you know, do the other way, then you kind of like lose the lesson of the pain and suffering as well.
Sure.
So the both are equally important, and you have to have your attention and your deep appreciation of both. And
Sure.
the little things, like the pain and suffering of, you know, losing our home of 20 years, that's real, and that's hurtful, and that's, you know, impactful. Hearing a bird song, and you know, this is not altruistic, this is like every day, and Elaine and I stop and we're like, where is it? Oh, there he is, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just that real appreciation of those little moments of joy that bring the joy back. So
Yeah, as the saying often goes, you don't know what you got till it's gone. Seems to be true in many cases. Oh, what do you think, Raquel? Anything to add?
Oh, yeah. And I'm sorry you're going through that, Frank. I hope that the situation
you.
turns around for you.
It
Hopefully.
will.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I extracted quite a few things from this. One, I kind of like that they mentioned that the path of joy is equally as effective as the path of sorrow. It kind of reminds me of the right hand and left hand path, you know, equally important. And, you know, you have an option. You really do. So the free will is the option. It's your choice that you can make. You can follow the path of sorrow, which I did for a long time. And now now that I've gained more polarization and I'm understanding myself more, which is disciplining of my personality in particular, right there, right? You discipline yourself and you understand more. I'm now choosing less intense catalysts. And so when I see others who are still deep in the suffering choosing harder catalysts, it's really just a choice now that hasn't been made. And the same thing of the choice of being here in third density. So really what they're saying about a sorrow and joy is that you can choose to follow each path. One is harder and one is not less. It's not that it's less, it's a little less difficult because you're still going to receive some type of pain and suffering through the path of joy, but now your understanding is more, it's more aware, like your perception is just more conscious of why you're suffering, right? It's like you're
Sure.
not going to live this life without any suffering. So I do want to say to the viewers, like, there is no path here where there's no pain, unfortunately. Sorry to burst the bubble here.
Welcome to third density. Yeah.
It's like, hello, third density. Destiny, sorry to burst that bubble, but there isn't even the path of joy. You're still gonna, somebody's gonna die that you love, and you're
Right.
gonna have to face that pain, right? But now you understand that person who died, they didn't disappear. They're gone to the spirit world, and they're gone to, you know, go and walk the steps of light, do their review, and plan another incarnation if that's what their life plan is about, or they're gonna graduate. So it's more of your level of consciousness, I think, that helps you to choose
Right.
the path that you're going to go down. And I think now that I'm kind of making better choices, I'm more on the path of joy, but I still have my foot hanging into the path of sorrow, because it's like
Yeah.
I'm still learning how to really cultivate that path of joy. So yeah.
Well, it's difficult. Like I said, if you're having a great life and everything's easy for you, then you don't really have a whole lot of incentive to do things better.
Exactly. Yeah, and
Reminds
I
me of
see
what they said
people.
many times before the veil of forgetting was invented or thought of. It was really hard for individuals and civilizations to make progress because they knew that all is one. They knew that everything is love.
Yep.
They were living in paradise and they really didn't feel any incentive to leave paradise
No,
until they
why
lost it.
if you're in great shape, why do you need to work out? You know what I mean? It's like
Right.
I look good.
That's
So
what I keep telling myself. Yeah, every morning. Yeah, for sure. What do you think, Katrina? Anything to add?
One of the things that stood out to me is I think, especially in American culture, I think people almost equalize joy and happiness, but this completely flips that, right? It's like, if you would be good at this path, meaning the path of joy, learn to be dissatisfied with happiness. So not even just are they not the same, like you've got to just not be okay being happy. Like you just got to get rid of that. And all things as a loss, except for turning again to praise and give thanks to the one infinite creator. And it's that realizing that happy and joy are not the same. So you can be joyous and still be sorrowful, right? Like
What's
you
the
can
difference
still,
between the two to you? What's the difference between joy and happiness?
I would say that joy is that praising for it. That Frank, I understand your pain. My husband and I had to sell our home of 21 years, the home that we raised our children in, due to financial circumstances. He lost his job, and we were just at a point where we couldn't. And all those memories and everything, it was hard. It was painful. But being a year out from that now, it's I can look at the joy that that home gave us, the stability
Mhm.
that it gave us for the time period that I needed, and I can give praise for that without having to look at it being something to make me happy. I can still feel
Yeah.
sorrow. I can still feel a sense of loss that we don't have it anymore, but it's really just a sense of praise for what it gave us for so long. And so I think
Yeah.
I think joy is maybe a deeper than like, oh, I feel happy and I want my lollipop, right? I think
Mhm.
it's, I think there's just this sense of, I think joy is more that sense of gratitude and praise
Mhm.
than it is um, just being content all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
If
makes
I
sense.
could if I could expand on it a little bit, I think joy is a sustained vibration, right? Like you're sustaining a vibration of choosing to be content in your spirit, in your outlook, in your perception of what's happening, as opposed to happiness. It's fleeting. It's like, okay, I bought this new item and it made me happy for like 30 minutes, and then you need another one to replace that. But a sustained peace, a sustained contentness within your spirit is joy, because you're trying to maintain a vibration, and maintaining your vibration is extremely important. That's one of the things I work on continuously. As soon as I see my vibration starting to dip, I do the necessary spiritual tasks that help me to once again raise that vibration, which keeps me in a state of joy. And that's what I said, following the path of joy really requires you following the path of your spirit, following your love of the creator, loving yourself, having, like Frank said, the boundaries to set. Your suffering is can be at a point a choosing for you. So if you can make better choices, you can lessen your suffering and choose the path of joy. So there is a clarification there between the path of sorrow and the path of joy that I need to make it understood, that you can choose different paths. The path of sorrow is deep suffering where you're lost. You don't know why this is happening to you. It's happening to you all the time. I can't stop this repeating thing from happening to me. But once you understand, and how do you understand this? You have to take a step back, pull yourself out of what's happening, and go inwards and try meditation, as they say, it's the key, and try to connect with the creator. The answers will start to come to you from the higher self as to why they've programmed this suffering for you, and that the suffering in the end is going to lead to you polarizing forward in your spiritual growth.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I love that. And I love it's just exactly the way I think we all sort of view our lives, you know, and that the joy is that deep appreciation of all the little tiny things and that the creator is, you know, like I was saying before. It's so important to maintain that point of view and to see it all the time, and to maintain that joy at you know, whether it's a bird singing or whether it's some delicious piece of food. And
Yeah, Frank, that's you acknowledging the creator.
yeah,
When
exactly.
those moments are you like, that's the creator like sending you back that love, you know? So
If
yeah.
you're doing it consciously,
Yeah.
absolutely. And
Mhm.
that's exactly it, right? So when we're walking around the seawall, we're just like, oh my God, this is just amazing how blessed we are to be here. And that real conscious love of the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a big part of it is thinking of others also. I think when we are experiencing life in paradise and everything is good, we're just enjoying it, and we can be thankful for it without necessarily thinking about others and how we can be still of service to others. I think the line in the passage that's standing out to me the most right now is in the second one, where they said, if the intensity of desire can be maintained while there is an absence of negative catalyst, then the negative catalyst is not necessary. But again, for most people, it seems like they do have to experience the negative catalyst to get them to have that desire to be thoughtful of others as well. I think that's a big challenge for all of us these days. Does anybody else have any other thoughts on this passage before we change subjects, look at something else?
Most people have chosen the path of sorrow. They need that deep pain to make the changes. And it refers back to the veil. We weren't doing anything before. So
Right,
now the deep pain forces people to, have that transformation.
right. Yeah, agreed. Why don't we go ahead and want to remind our viewers they were making references to the discipline of the personality here, something that's been talked about quite a bit in Law of One channeling sessions. And we did do a podcast episode on that one a while back. So check that one out, viewers, if you are interested. Otherwise, let's take a look at a couple passages on suffering and sacrifice. On May 28th, 1989, Quo said, we ask you to think of yourself as a symbolic manner as the Christ upon the cross. Each suffers, each dies, each spends the life, no matter how happy, in some degree of psychic, spiritual, emotional, mental, or physical pain. This is the road of service to others. This is the sacrificial road which each of you has chosen as service to others' entities. And on November 13th, 2003, Quo said, as this 75,000 year cycle that has been talked about often in this group was coming to its end, the cry was going out from those of planet Earth and from the planet itself, a cry of suffering and sorrow, a cry of seeking and hoping. And it is in response to the suffering of Earth that you decided to apply for the privilege of incarnation and what this entity who channels would call the heart of the beast. The crowded byways of your globe, in which the business of humankind has for so long included trauma, hardship, war, disease, and suffering of all kinds. You yearn to help. You examine what could be done without coming into incarnation, and you are not satisfied. You truly wished to make a difference, as did this instrument, as did all those within the circle, and you knew that you could not make that difference unless you had the right to it by birth, and so you took birth. Really beautiful passages, and reminds me of some other passage where they said that everyone incarnated now fought tooth and nail to get in line to have a place for a body, because apparently there's more souls that want to be incarnated on earth than there are bodies to house them in. So
Oh my
it
God.
is a privilege to have the right to experience all this fuckery that we've had to deal with here and so far in our lovely third density incarnations. It's a privilege and a joy. And I love the idea that we looked at it from the outside. We thought about what we could do to help without being incarnated and decided that wasn't good enough. I got to go down there and get my hands dirty. What a beautiful image. What do you think, Raquel? Any thoughts on anything here?
Well, I laughed through the entire passage reading because I personally did not read the fine print when I signed up for this apparent mission and contract.
Got the
So
terms and conditions and moved on.
I don't even know what the hell I was thinking. I'm like, did I even really see what was happening and think, what was I thinking? So I do believe this is geared towards wanderers again because it was very specific in the calling and you know we all have such big hearts. Honestly, we don't like to see others suffer, and I think that's the reason why we chose. But the things we have to endure here, it's I don't think we knew it was going to be at this level and at this degree because these psychic attacks, because it's there written, and the spiritual, emotional, mental, physical pain, there's so much that our vibration is just not compatible with anymore, especially that are in the higher densities. We come down here and we thought, oh, we could handle this. We've been through a third density planet before. We got this. But Earth is a whole nother beast, like they said. It really is. There's such mixed bags of energies here and people and entities that the suffering is on a level that people are incarnating here just to alleviate the suffering. You know what I mean? Like that's how bad it is that people are coming here taking on like such heavy tasks just to like balance the karmic energies here in the society. So I think that
But the gains for the individual can be great also. They have said
very
many
good.
times that
Absolutely.
wanderers come here, yes, to help the planet, but also to help refine their own balance of energies of love and wisdom.
Yeah, I think there's no I think universal law or language is of giving and receiving, and so it has to be an equal exchange really, but I do believe the sacrifices that we're making is beyond what we probably intended or as thought was going to happen. So yeah, but it's worth it in the end. I want to see the end sooner than later. So I'm just waiting to walk the steps of light, but yeah, it's intense here on in the 3D for sure.
Sure. In the belly of the beast, I would like to say, is the actual phrase. Nobody says the heart of the beast. That was
It's the
is
belly.
not familiar with the English language,
Got it wrong,
obviously.
Flo.
Yeah. What do you think,
You weren't
Katrina?
lying.
Um, really, this entire passage made me think of being a mom and like when you go into it, how you don't know what you're going into. Like you have this idealistic view of how much love you're going to have and how, you know, you're going to play games with them on the floor and you're going to do, you're going to be that mom that does Pinterest. And I don't know, all the different things, right? You have a very idealistic view. And then that first time that they put that precious little baby in your arms, like there's just an overwhelming sense of what did I do? And I would sacrifice anything for this child, right? Like at least that was my experience. I know some of us do not have that
Yeah.
experience, right? And they weren't connected with their children. But for me it's like there was so much suffering in being a mom. There still is so much suffering in being a mom, but there's also so much joy in it. There's so much praise in it, but there's so many lessons I would have never been able to learn without that sacrifice, without giving to something that can't really return that favor to me, right? Like I mean, my kids are adults now. They're 23 and turns 21 this weekend. um, but
Congrats.
right,
It's quite
I
a
don't think he's
milestone.
going to remember very much of it. But
Mhm.
it's just that until they bring me so much joy, but they're not at a stage where they are sacrificing for me or any, or would they even understand the sacrifice? So that's kind of where that mindset comes back to me of like, we may not have fully understood the sacrifice, like you were saying, Raquel, but
Mhm.
like we gained so much from it. We
Mhm.
have learned so much from it, and there's such beauty in it that
Mhm.
that's what I try to equate when I am going through these hard times of like, this is just like giving birth. It's fine. You're eventually going to have something that you'll hold on to that you'll love more than, yeah.
Well, it reminds me also of those who have kids like for the second or third time. It's because they obviously forgot how difficult and painful it was the first time. And I'm guessing that
Absolutely.
reincarnation is like that too. It's like you kind of
Yeah.
forget how
You
fucking
forget.
awful it was last time. And you're just happy to like fight and tooth nail to get in line and do it all over again for some reason.
Yeah.
What do you think, Frank? Anything to add?
Oh, I definitely agree with that, especially on the kids front. That's hilarious.
Mhm.
I think what was I thinking? Yeah, the whole suffering and seeing the pain and suffering of others is a real driver, um, to me anyway. And I think that's part of the work as a wanderer is, the we've chosen these roads, these paths, um, and we're so acutely aware of the suffering of other people, that it sort of causes the crystallization in us. That's how I see that a lot of this work.
For sure.
Yeah. I would riff off of what Katrina was saying in terms of the parent relationship, looking at it from that perspective. Yeah, through working with your child and working with other entities here that are your child that incarnate, you learn lessons that you normally wouldn't be learning in the higher densities as intensely as you do here on Earth. So I guess that's the choice. Like unconditional love for me, like my son, he incarnated here, and it's not that I wasn't a loving person before, but the lessons that he brought into my life was like he expanded my unconditional, like he opened up the green ray even more because I had to accept him for who he was. He has autism, so him being different from everybody else was like I have to love this person because just because he's the creator. That's it. Like that was the lesson right there. Like, and it took me, I loved him obviously, but it took me some time to accept him fully just as he was. And that is how you expand the green ray. You learn these lessons that you came here. So absolutely you can definitely reap the benefits of being here in the belly of the beast, as they say, but it's intense. And you have to really be conscious enough to accept the lessons as they come.
Indeed. Yeah, that last line in the second passage really jumped out to me, where they're saying, you wished to make a difference, and you knew that you could not make that difference unless you had the right to it by birth. And so you took birth. There was another beautiful passage I wrote. I'm looking at my notes for this one. On January 6, 2001, where Quo said, we are not in third density bodies. We do not have the right to bring light into planet Earth. Only those who have paid the price of flesh, who have come into the darkness of the illusion of Earth, have the
Mm,
right to open their hearts and ask to become crystals for transducing light.
hmm.
It's a beautiful passage that maybe people might not really think about or realize that these fourth, fifth, sixth density social memory complexes that are millions of years ahead of us in spiritual evolution, they could come down here and I'm sure they could snap their fingers and they could fix all of our problems and heal everything. But they're saying we don't have the right to do that. We are not there. Only those souls who took that risk to answer that call to come down to incarnation, forget everything, hope that they'll remember what they came here for. Those are the ones who
Yeah.
have the right to act as crystals to receive that light and use it to help the planet.
Yeah.
Good reminder, all of us on the Zoom call and everyone who's watching us in video, you paid a really high price to come here and be here. And you have the right now to use that energy and call for help to lighten planetary energies that those fifth, sixth density social memory complexes don't have. So, man,
Yeah.
use it. Every
Yeah.
minute of the day that you draw breath can be sacred and powerful and magical.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's very important that you understand that you are a channel for light. And so being open to that and using your the body that you came here with and your spiritual energy is very important, I think. And we tend to not focus too much on that. So I'm glad that you put that out there, Jonathan, that really just allowing yourself to be when you're meditating, just say, I just let the love and light pass through me, into planet Earth. That right there is all the service you can ever need to really do, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, they said if you can open your heart in any given moment, you are being of maximum service to the creator, the
Yes.
creation.
It seems so small, but it's so significant because
Right. And we
yeah.
paid a huge price for the privilege
Hmm.
of being able to do that. Viewers, check out our podcast episode on light workers and breath work. Those are two very underappreciated, underviewed videos where beautiful passages on using the power of light and breath. Literally every breath that you exhale can be magical and can lighten earth energies if you wish it to be so. Check out those episodes if you're interested. Does anybody else have anything to add on this passage before we look at something different?
I'm good.
Just quickly, how do you just let light pass through you? Sometimes I'm just driving and I see the beautiful array of trees, and I just, in my mind, imagine the logos just sending light through me and just illuminating that whole row of trees. And you just let it pass through you because some people don't know how to just let the light just come through you. You just receive it from the creator and you just let it flow through your heart space. And that's enough. There's no magical thing. You don't have to perform a ceremony. You could just be driving. You could be walking. Frank said he walks and they're looking at the birds. That's letting the light of the creator flow through him,
Hmm.
just connecting with nature. So, yeah,
And that's happening subconsciously, unconsciously. It's happening all the
all the time.
time, whether or not
Yeah.
you're aware of it. What they
Yeah.
said is the magical part is the blessing of it. They said the
Hmm.
energy is flowing through everybody all the time, but most people don't realize you can give it that extra blessing
Yeah.
to make it extra magical, extra powerful. And again, they said they don't have the right to do that. Only folks
No.
who incarnated here have the right to do that. But you
Yay,
can do it.
us.
Yay, us!
We're so magical.
Well, I try to remind myself every now and again in the day, just say, I bless this moment.
Hmm.
Whatever is happening, just say, I bless this moment. And that's magical.
It's
That's
beautiful.
beautiful.
And it is powerful because I think, what Raquel was just saying is it's exactly it. Like we focus our thoughts and our appreciation on whatever it is that we've seen. And I've been on the seawall with very close friends who I love and who are just amazing human beings. And the same thing will happen. I'll hear a bird or I'll see something and I'll just stop in our walk and I go, oh, check it out. And they're so busy processing or just being who they are that they just sort of go, oh yeah, okay, and then they keep going on. But like there's none of that real heartfelt awareness, which I think
Yeah.
is the key,
Hmm.
right? It's like, oh, it's a bird, yeah, it's cool, yeah, I can see it
Hmm.
anytime. Well, yeah, you can. It's that magical appreciation of that moment, of that thing
Yeah.
that's the joy.
That's why
Yeah.
near death experiences are so powerful, people. Once you've had a near death experience, then that bird is not just some ordinary bird anymore. It's a really special, beautiful thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, much appreciated. Appreciate the conversation for sure. Anybody else have anything to add before we look at another passage, another subject? Let's take a look at a passage on suffering and karma. This is from May 3rd, May 3rd, 1992. Quo says, why is there suffering by those starving in foreign lands? We may suggest that there are many who have chosen to incarnate for the purpose of suffering as intensely and as long as possible before the inevitable death by starvation or illness, not only in less technologically oriented cultures, but also within each culture. For within the culture which is your own, there are those with short, hungry, and brutal lives. These, may we say, Christ like entities, are pursuing a beautiful, poignant, and terrible service, absorbing the deadening, merciless, pitiless, and ruthless service to self distortions which have caused motives of greed, revenge, and slaughter to erupt into actions against groups of other selves through what you call your history. Others there are among you who do a great deal of work within, calling it prayer or meditation or worrying or concern, sending love and healing to those who watch and suffer and wait and perish. There is a lovely orison sounding, with millions of souls blending at all times. Your planet prays without ceasing. Always, in every night watch, there are those millions unknown to you who keep the watch for humankind. When others sleep, you may well be raising your internal voice in praise of the Infinite One, in thanksgiving and in intercession for all who suffer. And so, by lives lived in some part sacrificially, the societal karma is being, to some extent, alleviated through the heartfelt caring of very many of your peoples. It's a trippy passage to look at and really gives one pause for thought as one considers the possibility that there are many people who chose to experience all the suffering and brutality being inflicted on them voluntarily, sacrificially, in order to help alleviate our group karma. That's that's something to reflect on for sure. What do you think, Katrina? Any thoughts on that or anything else in this passage?
Well, when I put this passage into mind, I've never been someone who can look at someone else's suffering and not have compassion, right? And not have this desire to like pray or like want to make it better and have action. And so it was Law of One put it into perspective to me because I never understood how there could be people who could look at someone else's pain and like not have that desire, right? But that is the service to self entity. They don't see someone else, they see someone else's pain as their power, right? And so this balancing act of that, where the Law of One really taught that to me, of that I can still be service to others, and that service to others may sometimes actually be being service to self person by allowing my suffering to call someone else's praise, right? And like, it's this weird how they all interconnect together is so fascinating, and I could go on and on. Mushroom trips really make it interesting to be able to put it all together, because you see how they're all together and then you don't have the words to explain it. But it's just this beauty of like, you think you're causing slavery and pain and war, but really you're making the majority of us have compassion and raise a light. So spiritually, you're doing more harm than you are, like physically you're causing all this pain and suffering, but really spiritually you're making so many of us wake up to that pain and suffering and prayer and bringing light in, that then you're kind of shooting your own self in the foot. I don't know.
It is a weird thing, and it does remind me of the many times that Quo has said, nothing is as it seems. And it's like,
Right?
yeah, it's a good example. It's like, yeah, it's sometimes hard to tell. But I think maybe the most important thing you're saying is you can still have compassion, even if you understand that some people may have actually voluntarily chosen to accept all the pain and suffering they're having to go through.
100%. And
Mm-hmm.
that compassion is also the biggest power that we have against the service to self.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're trying to do so much to like, it's like we're bringing in this love and light of the infinite creator, and they are too in their own way.
In
It's
their
just
own
not a
way.
way we don't understand it,
Mm-hmm.
right? But like they're being able to their power and control is opening our hearts to compassion and love.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. In a way, service to self entities are really doing a great service to others in
Yeah.
their own way. What do you think, Frank? Anything to add?
Yeah, I love that. And I used to think, I remember as a kid thinking somebody like, you know, a historical figure like Hitler or something. And I wasn't ever fully on board with the fact that, you know, somebody like that could be just classified as evil or whatever. And I thought, well, what if their whole purpose was for people like us to, it's like they're here to cause that catalyst, that, you know, that feeling within us. So they're taking some of that onto themselves by being the negative being, in a sense, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That shines the light on in us and says, "Well, this is not cool, and I want to, you know, do something positive or whatever it is." But of the passage, what really, there was something here that made me think. Yeah, so again, with this, you know, my mum was an ex-Catholic nun, so I grew up with a really strong Catholic kind of upbringing, I guess you could say, that I rebelled against from a very young age. And I never understood that whole, you know, the little children starving thing. And this shed a very different light on it for me. That was one of the things that I could never fully understand, you know, why there are people in the world that are completely powerless, you know, when you consider third world countries where, you know, children are being abused so badly in every way. And the fact that maybe they're taking some of that pain on for the rest of humanity is that's a powerful thought.
Super
Absolutely.
powerful. Yeah. Christ like entities,
Mm.
these, may we say, Christ like entities are pursuing a beautiful, poignant, and terrible service. There's the word
Yeah.
terrible again.
Yeah.
Absorbing the deadening, merciless, pitiless, and ruthless self distortions. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
also
That's
the service to self entities, like Katrina was saying, I think it's important to put them both into that perspective a little bit. You know, we can't just completely paint them black and white. You know, there are because there are people that are born, like, you know, if you look at a true psychopath, right, there's this actual chemistry, there's actual brain. They've done this where they can see that the
no
frontal
empathy.
cortex,
Yeah.
there just doesn't fire, right? They've
Yeah.
done brain scans, and they're like, show them pictures of people in car accidents, and they look at the blood pattern as something kind of interesting. They haven't got that empathy built
Yeah.
in. So how
Right.
can we blame them then for being, you know, service to
Right.
self, you know, in a
Right.
sense? So have they taken that? Have they taken this particular incarnation, in essence, to provide the catalyst for us? Like, this is
Yeah.
something that, it's one of those questions that like chases its tail around in my mind.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. Good reminder that, again, this is not the density of understanding. And there
Exactly.
was some passage where Quo said specifically some entities choose to be the bad example
Yeah.
for others. Yeah. Much food for thought. What do you think, Raquel? Anything to add?
Yes, I hope you're absorbing that, Jonathan. Some people choose to be the bad example, like somebody we know right now. He's very
Well, it doesn't mean you have to
handsome.
vote for them. It doesn't mean you have to make them goddamn president of the United States. Yeah.
Agreed.
He's very handsome. He's very caring. He cares about others. I'm just kidding. But yeah. Um, so
In many ways,
yeah,
I love that same entity because he is
exactly.
for sure helping a lot of
Exactly.
people polarize
Oh yeah.
one way or the other, and it's probably doing more for the harvest than most other presidents have. So, in
Exactly.
that sense, no, I do love
You
him and
believe
I do
that? Like,
respect. Yeah.
yeah, that's amazing, right? Like, and bringing it back to tie it in what everybody said just now, it's a good thing that these Christ-like beings, right? They come and they're so sacrificial, but they're here balancing the energies of the service itself, right? Because without the light, without the darkness, there's no light, vice versa. And
Hmm.
so the balancing of the energies, as they said right here, is so important because right now the energy seems like it's going all negative, but in actuality, the balancing of the light is there, and actually it's more of a light planet than it is, right, of a negative. And I think the best part of this here is that others among you who do a great deal of work is, in prayer and meditation, some of us, especially me, I won't say especially me, but before I understood this information, I used to feel so bad. Children were starving, people were hungry, homeless people, all the suffering. I used to be like torn up inside about it. And it's not that I'm not now, but now the understanding is there. And I'm like, okay, now I could just pray for these souls. Now I can, in my meditation, I can send them the energies that they might need to just get through that extra day or bounce, because it's not easy being here and not understanding why you're suffering, and it's such deep suffering as it is. And if they haven't pierced the veil in their suffering, it's even harder. But knowing now that I can delight and love that I can send through myself in the prayer of the world, when I pray for the world, I know that they're part of my prayer, and that they actually receive that energy. So before I felt powerless to help. Now I know at least I can offer a little bit of help, right? So for those who find it hard to watch people suffer and people go through stuff, just remember that it was their choice. Number one, it's always the hardest thing to know that is their choice. Number two, you can do something. You just offer their prayer, blessings, love, and light to them, and that helps. So, yeah.
Indeed. Yeah, and that may well be a good segue into our final passage. Did anybody else have anything to add on this before we look at one more? Let's take a look at a passage on how to love the suffering. On June 19th, 1994, Quo said, "So we welcome you to this path of sorrow, loss, and limitation. We encourage each to practice the path of joy, to practice the presence of the one infinite creator. But we say to you that most of you shall, again and again, fall away from joy into comfort, happiness, and eventual sorrow. And we say that it is well that these sorrows then occur, for this is that which teaches at this particular stage of awareness. The primary choice, we say again, is toward the absolute, the infinite, and eternal, as opposed to all things temporary and illusory. We encourage each seeker to practice this joy as much as possible within the framework of an authentically lived life which grapples with the sorrows of an incarnation. Encourage and exhort each other to practice the presence in all ways which are meet and appropriate one to another. Encourage the self whenever the mind may turn to awareness of self, to turn again and again to that center within which all things reside, abide, and have their being. Give thanks always and for every blessing, including the most unimaginable loss and pain. Rejoice in hardship and suffering, and let your heart be glad in life and death, then you shall not be troubled with sorrow. But dear ones, if you cannot achieve this state of vibration, know that this is no more than what was expected for third density. You now walk in a shadowland where nothing is what it seems. Within each atom of the shadowland resides an infinite, absolute reality. The journey takes no time, no space. The answers lie within. Do not begrudge your sorrows their place, for the path of joy does await."
Yes.
I love again how, as I said at the beginning of this video, the answer to why there's so much suffering is basically you asked for it. We all asked for it. But the longer answer is more compassionate, more nuanced, more with love and wisdom. And that's really what I pick up so much from this passage. So much love, so much wisdom and compassion. They're saying try to love the suffering, but if you really can't, it's okay. Nobody expected you to do any better than that in third density. I just find that so consoling and comforting. What do you think, Frank? Any thoughts on anything here?
Yeah, I really like that. It's almost like they've given us a little graduation sort of steps, from joy into comfort, happiness, and eventual sorrow. It's like, and the joy being the awareness and the other sort of variations that we've all spoken about of that. And so, it's like if you feel yourself moving from the place of joy or awareness of thanks and praise and all these other words that kind of mean the same thing to me, into just comfort. I'm just happy in my everyday life now. And then the earlier you can catch that, in a sense, right? The earlier you can catch yourself doing that and falling into that, oh, I'm just going to, watch Netflix and chill or whatever, then you bring yourself back into that, the joy, the awareness, the praise, again, all those words that we just use to talk about the same concept. That to me is really, really powerful, because if you don't, then you will follow that downward trail from into what that happiness, and then eventually sorrow, right? If you're not consciously aware of those, of all those moments.
Yeah, agreed. Makes sense. What do you think, Raquel? Anything to add?
Oh, definitely. I think what they're describing here is adept work, to be honest with you, because it takes such a level of deep tuning, discipline, understanding, awareness to really accomplish this, really. And I guess what they're trying to say is don't focus too much on the external, because everything external is illusionary. Nothing in this life is permanent, real, or lasting. And so you just have to, if you can understand that, you will be able to have a neutral stance. That's number one. Being neutral on everything that happens, whether it's something amazing, whether you made $1 million or you lost $1 million, right? It's, if you can have a neutral stance on that, it's about accepting everything and being detached from everything. And those processes of being able to navigate this world, because it goes like this, like there's ebb and flow, like 1 minute you're up, the next minute you're down. 1 minute you think you're on top of the world, the next minute you fell down that same mountain that you were just screaming on top of. So if you could just like, you just like understand how this game works and how the procedures of this planet operate and how the energies work, your job or your whole thing is maintaining a level of vibration that can handle everything that comes your way, because you're going to be swayed back and forth, but your neutral stance is what's important. Your neutral stance in detachment from outcome, from just surrendering, accepting everything that comes your way, it'll be a lot easier to navigate this. And then you can actually accomplish some of the things that they're trying to say here. But really, everything outwards, it's not where your attention needs to be. Bring that inwards, because it's the inward cultivation that's going to help you to navigate the outward.
Yeah, it reminds me of that passage from Ra where he said the entity on the service to others path will not have a variant experience. They're not going to have a life where everything goes great. You're still going to experience all the same negative catalysts or negative seeming catalysts as everybody else. But they just said to the pure of heart, it will appear as a blessing to you if you are on that path. What do you think, Katrina? Anything to add?
I just think the most important part of this for me that stood out the most was that first line in the second paragraph, and the framework of I cannot say it now.
Authentically.
Authentically lived life, which grapples with the sorrows of an incarnation. I think it's so important to be that authentic and not just have your checklist of, okay, well, I said I was thankful, but then I just went and distracted myself, or I think that's where I think that's where we can get lost in that. Did I really make friends with my pain? Did I really find joy in this lesson? Like that authentic self of being able to say, no, really, were there areas that I didn't uncover, right? I think that that's so important because, like I said, having been raised in that more evangelical, it was more like you weren't allowed to say when you were going through a sorrow. It's like they almost always used it as like, well, that means like either you did something wrong and you deserved it, or like that you're being tested like Job and like you just have to give praise. I mean, they had this song, it was like, give thanks to the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. And it's when you're going through it, when you're like truly going through this sorrow, it's easy when you're not going through it to sit there and say like, well, yeah, no, I'm thankful for it. I'm praising for it. But when you're in that dark and you're in that sorrow, like being authentic in saying, am I saying this just to try to get out of the pain, or am I truly trying to authentically work through this? I think that that's the important piece, because you can always check the boxes, but if you haven't done the work, then it's not going to change anything.
Yeah, every emotion is legitimate, and I think it has been said many times that trying to repress an emotion is not an appropriate response. I think if you want to achieve the neutrality that Raquel was talking about,
Yeah.
you have to allow negative as well as positive emotions to come out and express as
Absolutely.
seems appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, when Katrina was talking, my eyes veered to the bottom of the page, and I have a personal belief that we are here doing the creator's shadow work. And so when it says, with each atom of this shadowland resides in an infinite absolute reality, the journey takes no time, no space, it goes on. But if we can like do our shadow work, we're doing the creator's shadow work. And so in doing that work, you uncover the trueness of yourself, right? You balance the negative of you and the positive you, and then you merge that, and then you become a better version. That line shines even brighter. And that's for everybody, not just wanderers, just anybody that can just integrate the negative part of themselves that they hide or don't love. That's so important because this land seems dark right now, but the more lights, the more merging of the cells, the more light begins to shine even brighter. So
Well said.
yeah.
Yeah, which reminds me, one more point I think I wanted to make before we wrap things up. I liked what they said in that first paragraph of the second passage about encouraging and exhorting each other to practice presence in all ways of life. Reminder that, yeah, so many folks in our Law of One study groups, and there are many different Law of One study groups, have expressed at some point how nice it is to have people that they can have these conversations with. So, did want to encourage viewers, if you do not have anybody that you can talk about this stuff with, join the Seattle Law of One study group or go to the L&L Research website and find the list of study groups there that are meeting literally every day of the week, and see if you can find like-minded seekers, people that you vibe with and can have these conversations with and support each other through difficult times. And if for whatever reason that's not possible, just know that you who are watching this right now and YouTube analytics say there's only 20 or 30 people who are watching the video this far. If you're one of those people, just know you are part of this spiritual community in time space, regardless of how far apart we may be in space and time. You are part of our spiritual community, and we appreciate that. Having said that, why don't we go ahead and wrap things up? Where do we go from here? What are some takeaway lessons we might have from our hour-plus long discussion today? I have 4 for you to consider. For one, more pain equals more gain. The more you suffer, the more you gain from it. Think of it as resistance training. Heavy lifting heavier weights helps you build more spiritual muscles if you're lifting heavy spiritual weights. Third, you did in fact come here to suffer for others. That is a big part of the reason why all of us who are watching this came here. And that, yeah, in many ways, suffering alleviates karma, and there is a whole lot of karma that needs to be alleviated from humanity's past. And do the best you can to love the suffering. If you can't, just remember nobody really expected any better of that in third density anyway. What do you think, Raquel? Any takeaway lessons of your own you'd like to add?
Well, I love your takeaways. They hit all the major points. But yeah, keeping it internal. Just know everything external is illusory, and even the suffering is not real. It feels real because I'm telling you, it hurts like a bitch, but uh, it's not real. And eventually, the suffering can be alleviated. Not entirely, but you can start to choose and make different decisions that will lead you to a path of less suffering. And that's the path of joy. So, remember the creator is within and you are the creator. So that's
Well
it.
said.
Love
Thank
you
you.
guys.
Love you too. Katrina?
Mhm.
I just think someone who's going to be called to this episode might be in the throes of suffering. And I just want to remind people that you're loved and you're worthy, and reach out to a community, reach out to
Mhm.
people who are there to help you, because you are loved, because you are the creator. So
Mhm.
So beautiful. Thank you for adding that. Frank?
No, I mean, I think I just again agree with these wonderful advanced souls, and yeah, my only caveat would be the more pain, more gain. It's like not sure I 100% agree with that. I think the awareness of the pain, maybe, but let's dial it back a bit. But yeah, that's just sort of a little joking aside. It's been really wonderful to hear the different opinions or the same opinion voiced in different language. And I've been barreling down a bit of a Robert Sapolsky pathway. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of him, and he's an amazing neuroscientist, and sort of trying to see things from his point of view. He's a complete atheist, and talks about the lack of free will. And so it's just interesting to hear, people that are more in line with my belief system talk about certain things, and to sort of get that balance again.
Yeah, as always, I come away from these podcasts having learned things that I hadn't thought of before, hearing ideas, perspectives I hadn't heard or thought of before. So much appreciate, panelists. Did want to let our viewers know that if you enjoyed this episode, you might want to check out our podcast episode on blessings and curses, discipline of personality, things that we touched on in this episode, as well as the game of life. If you didn't know this, your life is very much like a video game, and learning how to deal with suffering is how you advance to higher levels in the game. And anyone who's familiar with Joseph Campbell's work is familiar with the hero's journey and looking at great passages there that relate also to how to overcome suffering as part of your journey. Because we're all heroes in our own hero's journeys. We're all the main characters in our own life movies, including you, viewer. Check out the podcast episode on karma. Comes up a lot in Law of One channeling sessions, both individual and collective, as well as the much underappreciated episode on all is well. Just how to believe and know in your heart that all is well, all will be well, in spite of overwhelming evidence to the contrary. Well,
basically check out every podcast that like he's listed like 10. So
well, I'm trying to pick out the ones that haven't gotten as many views as others, and I think these guys deserve some loving as well. Which brings us to our pop quiz. Pop quiz, of course, is something we like to do at the end of our times to end our otherwise extremely serious, heavy discussions on a somewhat lighter note. And because today's episode was about suffering, the pop quiz today is going to be on movies about suffering. I could have gone for horror movies, but instead, for this one, I actually wanted to focus on movies about intense suffering that has actually been experienced in history by large groups of people. Panelists, viewers, anything you can think of in history that really involved intense suffering by a large group of people?
My family.
My family. I'm surprised they haven't made a movie about it yet. Yeah, I was thinking a little bigger than that. Yeah.
Okay.
The Holocaust, the Crusades, what we did to our native people, slavery.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, it's
slavery. There's a lot.
Tale as old as time.
It's pretty good. You hit a couple of them. I was thinking of the same thing. Viewer, what did you think of that hasn't been stated yet? Let's see. Well, so yes, let me ask you 3 pop quiz questions about 3 movies about suffering. Let's see if we can find some Law of One connections in there. First movie, slavery. Nobody mentioned anything about slavery. That was kind of a big deal, I think.
Actually, I said it. Slavery.
Did you? Oh, okay, good. I missed it. So first question, true or false? 12 Years a Slave was based on a true story. What do you think, panelists?
No
true.
idea.
I think it was. True.
Probably true.
Yeah, indeed. Great movie, and I gotta admit, I have not seen it yet, but I have heard it was a great movie, and it is based on the book 12 Years a Slave by Solomon Northup, who was a freedman of mixed race, but was kidnapped in Washington, D.C. and sold into slavery, where he worked on plantations for about 12 years in Louisiana before finally getting his freedom. Panelists, have any of you seen this movie?
No.
I saw it a long time ago. So I remember bits and pieces of it, but it's crazy to think that one minute you're free from slavery, and then boom, you're back into it. So his suffering was a long road, right, to redemption, as they say.
Yeah, what a nightmare, huh? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so obviously there is a whole lot of unbalanced karma from slavery in both its pre-Civil War forms as well as its post-Civil War forms, all the way up to today, I would say. Oh, how about another one? You mentioned the Holocaust. True or false? Part of Schindler's List was filmed at Auschwitz. Panelists, did any of you see this movie?
I did.
Yeah. I'm going
Long
to say
time ago too.
false.
I'm gonna say true.
I would say true. I haven't seen it.
Nice. False. None of it was filmed inside the Auschwitz memorial site because they were not given permission
They were
to do
allowed.
that. But Spielberg apparently did film right outside the main gatehouse,
Okay.
and they did build a replica of the interiors of Auschwitz at a Liban quarry in Krakow, Poland, which was also used as a labor camp. So,
Jonathan, this was a trick question then, because it was right outside and it was a replica. Technically, he did.
yeah, it did say at Auschwitz. Huh, yeah, that's true. Didn't say inside.
So,
Good point. You got me
your
on that one.
trick questions,
Yeah.
Jonathan.
Yeah. But again, yeah, clearly a whole lot of unbalanced karma involving Nazis and Jews that apparently we still need to work out as a collective. So, still working on that one. How about your next question? You did talk about the indigenous peoples, colonization. True or false? Dances with Wolves was based on a true story.
True.
I'm going to say false.
Yeah, I'm going to say false.
Nice.
True.
Correct answer is false. Not a true story. It's a work of historical fiction based on a 1988 novel by Michael Blake. While the characters are fictional, the film was set against the backdrop of the real American Civil War. And apparently it is true that white settlers, traders, and captives did indeed voluntarily join Native American tribes and assimilated into their cultures. Apparently it was recorded in several instances, although the reverse did not seem to happen very often.
It wasn't voluntary.
No. Interesting to note, though, I don't know if folks know this, but yeah, session 10, question 15 of the Raw Contact question came up about Atlantis and Lemuria. And Raw said the beings from Lemuria were somewhat primitive in nature, but had very advanced spiritual distortions. The Indians, of whom you have come to feel some sympathy in your social complex distortions, are the descendants of these entities. Passage was edited for brevity, but yeah, again, obviously a whole lot of unbalanced karma involving treatment of indigenous peoples that we are still working out. Go ahead.
Which leads me to think that we've all lived many different lifetimes as different entities. And so, having to balance the karma, we're just balancing the karma we caused. And it just seems like our suffering is unrelated to us, but it really is, because we're everyone, we're all one. So we are responsible for all the karma that has been, I guess,
For sure.
gained.
For sure. Yeah, and again, it's a privilege that each of us has the ability to try to balance that karma in whatever way we can, whatever seems appropriate to us in our own lives. So thank you, viewer, who are doing that in your own way as well. I do actually have one more bonus question for you. This is probably about a movie that you haven't seen. It is The Cove. True or false, a slaughter of dolphins in Japan stopped 2 years after the release of The Cove. Is this a movie that anyone on the panel has seen?
I haven't seen it, but I am aware of the slaughtering of the dolphins. And I would doubt, well, Japan, maybe. If it's China, I was going to say no, they wouldn't stop. They would just pretend like they did. So I'm on the fence. Let me
I'd
hear
say
what
What do you
false.
think?
I'm going to
Katrina?
say true.
I wish it was true. Unfortunately, apparently it
Was
is
helpful.
false. And apparently they're still continuing to this day.
That's
They
why I was
are
on the fence. So I was like, yeah.
Yeah, this movie, interestingly enough, was directed by Luc Besson, who is the guy who directed The Fifth Element, of all things, for science
Wow.
fiction fans. But yeah, apparently they once a year for some part of the year they herd the dolphins into some cove using some noises to disorient them, and
Mm.
then yes, the water turns red with their blood as they're slaughtered, either for meat or apparently they're also captured for sale to marine parks and aquariums, and apparently that's where the big
Oh
money
my
is from that.
gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which leads us to another great movie called Blackfish. Any of you see Blackfish?
Nope.
No.
It was a great documentary about orcas kept in captivity, and I probably wouldn't have watched it except I showed it to my biology and my zoology classes. And it's a great movie about well, the same thing, cruelty of
Yeah,
keeping orcas in captivity and dolphins who really shouldn't be kept in
they
captivity.
shouldn't.
And, yeah,
This is one of the things that I'm, if anything, like towards animals, I'm very um affectionate towards sea animals, especially the whales that are being in captive, because think about how they swim around the whole planet, right? And then in this little tiny aquarium, even though it seems like they fit in it, it's just not. It's like they meant that's why with some of them snap and attack the trainers, not because
right.
they're aggressive animals, but because of the cat like the mental torture of not being able to be free.
They
It's
are
just
as intelligent as humans, if not
yes.
more
And I
intelligent.
believe a lot of the souls from the Atlantis have
Right,
incarnated as well. And to be honest with
right.
you, I've never been to a sea theme park and I will never be going to one. So yeah. I don't want to
For sure.
see animals in aquariums.
Yeah, and to her credit, Gabriella Copperthwaite is the woman who directed this film, and because of the public outcry that followed this movie, SeaWorld did indeed phase out its
Yeah, I
orca
remember that.
programs. So
I
one
remember that.
I,
person can make a difference for sure.
Hmm.
I remember going to Taronga Zoo in Sydney when I was very young, and I just I cried. There was this I guess a gorilla or something, like some very large ape, and it was just sitting in a cage, and it was just sitting there, it just sort of like hunched over and looking out, and just no other sign of life except the fact that it was breathing. And I just, and I remember I must have been about 10, between 10 and 12, and I just remember thinking, well, what did that being do to be put in
Right,
jail? Because it was in jail.
Hmm.
There were
right.
bars, to protect me, from this dangerous creature who shouldn't have been in fucking Sydney in the first place.
Hmm.
It was like,
Well, that's the lesson, I think, and that's the law of one lesson for all of these things, whether it's the slavery or Holocaust or indigenous peoples or animals in captivity. It's being able to look at and so-called other that seems different from us and being able to
Hmm.
see ourselves in them
mhm.
and seeing creator
Yeah.
in them. That's the lesson
I
I
never
think
went
that we're
to a
all here
zoo
for.
again after that. It was just one of those moments.
Same.
I was like, no, my
Hmm.
kids wanted to go when they were little. I'm like, no, I'm sorry, guys. We'll go into the bush and we'll see a real kookaburra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we're not going to go to a zoo. But yeah,
Yeah. Panelists, it's been a beautiful discussion. Thank you, as always, for being here, and thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. And to all our friends at L&L Research, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. And to you, viewer, whoever is still watching at this point, thank you
All
for all
three of
you've
you.
done, continue to do in service to others. We are sending you our love light, and we are receiving yours. Until next time, in the love and light of the one infinite creator, Adonai, namaste. Say goodbye, panelists.
goodbye,
Bye,
panelists.
everyone. Thank you, guys.